Professor Bedoya, and it's a great honor for me to participate in this panel on the bias in the government surveillance. I was an innocent target of government surveillance, and as such, I laud the Fourth Amendment caucus for working to protect our constitutional rights, and I want to add my support by telling you my story. It was May 21, 2015, and I was wakened by loud knocks on my door, and it was so urgent that I opened the door without even fully dressed. Many people were outside of my house. Some were armed, and some had a battering ram ready to take down my door. An FBI agent announced my arrest, and another put the handcuffs on me. So the armed agents burst into my house, running about and running up my wife and two daughters. One by one, they walk out of their bedrooms at gunpoint with their hands raised. I had no idea why this was happening, and I was worried how frightening this must be to my wife and daughters. And my younger daughter was only 12 years old. But I couldn't have worked with them. As the FBI agents took me out of my house, I had no idea when I would see them again. I grew up during Cultural Revolution in China, and it was not unusual then that people got taken away and could not see their family for a long time. At the FBI headquarters, I was subjected to DNA sampling, mugshot fingerprinting, and interrogation. Later, at the U.S. Marshal Service, I was ordered to strip naked and bend over against the wall so that a U.S. Marshal could check whether I hid anything in my body. At the end of the 2 hours interrogation, the FBI agents told me that I was charged for having made a pocket heater covered by a non-disclosure agreement with a U.S. company for a Chinese collaborator. And I said that's absurd. The fact is that I had never shared the pocket heater information with anybody in China. So I couldn't believe how they could charge me using these techniques that's for violent criminals and designed to inflict maximum psychological damage to me and my family with not a thread of truth in their accusation. So there were 4 counts in the indictment against me based on 4 emails that I sent from my Temple University address to colleagues in China. None of the emails talked about the pocket heater. They were about things entirely different from the pocket heater. So a heater is what we use to make a heat substrate when we make thin film materials, much like using a stove to cook. The pocket heater is a kind of a heater invented and patented by a company in Germany in the 1990s, and the US company modified it for its own purpose. It is not classified, not sensitive, but rather well known publicly. And I'm not aware of any economic value it has to the US company. And I don't know why the federal government should even care about it. The FBI agents did ask me a lot of questions about my academic collaborations with Chinese colleagues. But this is what the US government and the universities encourage us to do. They are for advancing sciences, for publications, and never for financial gain. And in my research, I have never done anything involving sensitive, classified, or protected information, or export control technologies. So I was very fortunate to have engaged a team of great lawyers. And leading expert in my research field wrote affidavits to affirm that I had never shared the pocket heater technology with China. The author of one affidavit said that I'm very familiar with the pocket heater as I was one of the co-inventors. Armed with these affidavits, my lawyers gave a presentation to the government and made a request that find your own expert and ask if there's any evidence that Professor Xi shared the pocket heater information with people in China. We also shared a motion to dismiss the indictment that we were ready to file with the court, with the government. On September 11, 2015, the deadline date, the court ordered us to file our motion. The government dismissed the case, citing additional information came to the attention of the government. So when the case was dropped, and I told the New York Times reporter that the government should not have charged me without first checking with the expert. I said, this is not a joke. This is not a game. Imagine that one day I was a respected researcher and department chair and enjoy family time just like any ordinary American family. Overnight, I was painted as a Chinese spy all over the news and the internet, and faced up to 80 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Friends and colleagues stopped talking to us, and I could not talk to my students. We were constantly concerned about the FBI surveillance and even our personal safety. This sudden strike was enough to crush anybody, but even worse, the stress day in, day out, as time wore on, would accumulate and become almost unbearable. In addition, we didn't know how we would pay for the mounting legal fee if the case dragged on. We were constantly consumed by outrage and anguish, defiance and scares, a nightmare that I do not wish any innocent American to go through. So it's been more than a year since my case was dismissed. But our struggle is far from over. We know that the FBI had all my emails. We know that they listened to my phone calls. We know that FISA was used, a federal law which authorized the collection of foreign intelligence information between foreign powers and agents of foreign powers. And we know that I was surveilled. What we don't know is why. What was the probable cause for the government to spend so much taxpayers' money to target someone who had done nothing wrong? Once our rights was violated like this, our peace of mind was gone forever. We are now living under constant concern that the government is still trying to, as the Chinese saying puts it, pick bones out of an egg and charge me for something. So did I become a target of the federal government because I collaborated with colleagues in China? But I was doing what the government asked us to do. According to the Department of State, science and technology cooperation with China accelerated scientific progress in the United States, providing significant direct benefit to a range of U.S. technical agencies. For example, the Department of Energy and the U.S. Air Force have actively pursued collaborations with Chinese scientists on superconductivity for years. In fact, my National Science Foundation grant required me to exchange samples with colleagues in China. If scientists stop collaborating with foreign colleagues for fear of prosecution, and if talents around the world stop coming to America, the damage to our nation's interest will be substantial. Was the probable cause related to my Chinese ethnic origin, to my visits of my aging mother, my siblings, and my friends in China? My lawyer Peter Zeidenberg has asked, if he was Canadian American or French American, or he was from the UK, would this have ever even got on the government's radar? I don't think so. What's alarming is that mine is not the only such case. There was National Weather Service hydrologist Sherry Chen, and there were Eli Lilly biologists Guoqing Cao and Shui Li. There is a pattern that scientists of Chinese origin being charged only for the charges to be dropped. This has prompted members of the U.S. Congress, and like the members of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and many other members, and the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and many Asian American civil rights groups to ask the Department of Justice to investigate whether race, ethnicity, or national origin had played any role in these cases. If race-based persecution and prosecution exist for any ethnic groups of Americans, such practices infringe on the constitutional rights of due process and equal protection of American citizens. Supreme Court Associate Justice Louis Brandeis once said, "The greatest danger to liberty lurk in the insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding." Cases like mine do not advance the cause of fighting economic espionage and protecting our intellectual properties. They undermine people's confidence in America's legal system, and they terrorize the Asian American community and scientific community. They endanger the liberty we cherish so much in this country. The work of the Fourth Amendment Caucus is important in the fight to prevent the tragedy that happened to me from happening again to other innocent Americans. And I thank you wholeheartedly for your